people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. The big showdown between Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall has been rescheduled to October 15th, the date they were throwing around when the fight was postponed after the Queen's passing and how that affected the nation over there in the United Kingdom. That's a little over 3 weeks from now. This has to have been hard on the fighters themselves, who basically had the rug swept from under them after having made the weight so close to the fight to have the fight postponed the day of the weigh-in. And granted that the silver lining and the saving grace is that they were able to be Johnny on the spot with this and reschedule the fight in a jiffy. It didn't really take long, but for the fighters that had to make weight and made the weight,
I bet those broads were pissed.
if you think you were disappointed as a boxing fan, imagine how they felt as actual boxers, drinking water and eating apples and oranges. Peter Fury said in the 24 hours leading up to the weigh-in, Savannah Marshall didn't even eat at all. Well, I'm no expert on the matter. I don't presume to be, but I imagine that having the fight delayed approximately 5 weeks, just 5 weeks from the initial fight date, has to be somewhat of a balancing act for the fighters, for Savannah Marshall, for Clarissa Shields, for Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgartner. You see, the other fighters, the ones in the early stages of their career, like Carolyn Dubois and Lauren Price,
Paris Arthington,
Shannon Ryan and Sarah Liegmund, Ebony Jones, Georgia O'Connor, for them, April Hunter, and Virginia Fuchs. You know, they're participating in what are developmental fights. I mean, that's what they're doing. Bring-along fights. Whereas Savannah, Clarissa, Alicia, and Michaela, these are high-level fights that they're about to be in. High-level fights against other high-level fighters. So I imagine it might have actually been a little bit more difficult on them than it was for the other fighters. The other fighters aren't champions. They don't got nothing to lose. The other fighters, they're not opposite the ring somebody like a Michaela Mayer or an Alicia Baumgartner or a Savannah Marshall or a Clarissa Shields. The pressure, it's not really on them as much as it's on those participating in the co-main event and the main event. It is a little different for them. And you have to wonder how this delay may have affected one or some or all of these combatants in terms of performance and preparation. In terms of promotion, are the people over there at Sky and Boxer? We are now a little over 3 weeks out from the fight, the actual fight date. Will they use the next 3.5 weeks or so to further promote? Are we going to get a gloves-are-off style face-off between Alicia and Michaela, like the one they did for Savannah and Clarissa? We got a featurette with Michaela and Alicia that was conducted by Andre Ward and Timbrid Lee, where both fighters seem to have been in separate locations during the filming of this segment. I'd like to see them face to face, sit down right in front of each other and hash it out before they lock horns. The tension between them is thick enough to cut with a knife. The trash talk between them is made for TV, and so is the rivalry. It's a main event unto itself, if you ask me, but that's only if you're asking me. And you know, my thoughts haven't changed. These are tough fights to edge. They really are. Between Clarissa Shields' clean boxing and Savannah Marshall's ambidextrous switch hitting and punching power, which one between them will secure the W? It comes to Michaela and... Yeah, because when you ask people who they're picking to win these fights, most of what you get are nationalist sentiments. Tribalism. There seem to be a lot of people that are going with their heart as far as their predictions instead of their heads. That both of these fighters are actually very good fighters and very good boxers. But it's really not the boxing influencing people's predictions as far as who's going to win these fights. It's their tribalism and their nationalism. Emotionally compromised fight fans going with their hearts instead of their heads. I suppose that's not a bad thing. The year mark of an excellent fight, excellent card, and excellent matchups. The year mark of an excellent fight are emotionally invested fight fans. And that's what many fight fans are when it comes to these fights. They're emotionally invested, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But it doesn't really offer you much in terms of an actual breakdown and breaking down the boxing, the actual nuts and bolts boxing. Because These are very tough fights to edge. The fight between Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall, as well as the Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner showdown. Alicia Baumgartner, who seems to have taken the sport by storm almost overnight, knocking out Terry Harpier, a fan-friendly, gracious fighter, a skilled boxer,
And a great trash talker, too.
although Michaela Mayer isn't too shabby herself. She can talk some trash as well. Let's see if she can back it up. Michaela Mayer, who seems to have two base styles, two primarily, the mid-range to inside close quarters fighter and the long-distance boxer, given her physical dimensions, her long extremities, long arms, long legs, long strides.
Still a mystery. It's still up in the air. Which base style will Michaela decide to use against Alicia?
And whether or not Alicia Baumgartner will be able to deal. How will she contend against this division's unbeaten unified champion? There are questions that need answers. And October 15th,
It's going down.
hopefully we'll get those answers, whatever those answers may be. Men's heavyweight news. Eddie Hearn very recently talked about a potential Deontay Wilder versus Alexander Usyk heavyweight showdown, and he basically said that I don't see Alexander Usyk losing a round to Deontay Wilder, to which veteran promoter Lou Dibella said, won't matter if Wilder lands the one punch that knocks Usyk out, and he likely would. Like, he would likely knock Joshua out. In fact, Hearn might be right until the knockout punch. But does it matter? Respect the puncher.
Wilder is fucking overrated.
He's overrated, and you'll excuse me for saying so, but I don't know that he can KO any elite-level boxer, let alone one like Alexander Usyk, because he never has.
We're not talking about fat club fighters and journeymen.
Eddie Hearn responded by saying, might want to read it first. I don't see Usyk losing a round to Deontay Wilder, but at the same time, Wilder carries more power to cause problems for anyone. To which Lou Dibella replied, it's not a misleading headline. It's a cop-out to say Usyk will win every round with the caveat that Wilder is dangerous. Why comment then? Of course Wilder is dangerous. Obviously. You believe Usyk wins an easy but risky decision. I think Wilder KOs the better boxer.
What do you mean, why comment then? They asked him.
They asked him what he thought would happen if they fought. And why are you expecting Eddie Hearn to tailor his answer to your preferences?
You'll excuse me for saying so, Lou, but not everybody thinks Wilder hails the moon and the stars.
And you'll excuse me for saying so, Lou, but a lot of people think Wilder's power is grossly overrated. Yeah, most of those knockouts he racked up are over fat club fighters and journeymen. As soon as he stepped up in competition, you see what happened.
Let's stop pretending that Deontay Wilder's the second coming of George Foreman and Ernie Shavers.
Lou Dibella responded by saying, fair enough. Who wins in your opinion? Genuinely curious. To which Eddie Hearn replied, I think the fight plays out like Wilder versus Ortiz 2 without the ending. Usyk's engine is unbelievable, and he won't switch off or be static. Very wide, unanimous decision or late stoppage via mental and physical fatigue. To which Lou Dibella replied, that's very plausible. He would have to be far more defensive than he was with AJ, though. He can't trade the same way with Wilder or eat as many shots.
You know what Lou Dibella's not factoring into the equation? Wilder is not a prolific puncher.
Deontay Wilder is a fighter who more or less spends an entire round trying to land a single punch, a single shot. And he often loses a lot of rounds waiting for that opportunity.
But can we talk about why everybody's so bent out of shape that Eddie Hearn thinks Usyk beats Wilder?
Two-time undisputed champion Clarissa Shields was quoted as saying, I wish this man would shut the fuck up. He doesn't know shit about boxing. First I'll get knocked out by Marshall, then Wilder won't win a round against Usyk. This dude is foolish. And Clarissa, you haven't actually boxed Savannah yet, so we don't know if she'll knock you out. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But the man's allowed to have an opinion.
What, he's not allowed to talk about it unless his opinion aligns with yours?
Do you think that's why Savannah Marshall called Clarissa a bully at the press conference for their fight?
You know what I think? I think she better try her best not to get knocked out by Savannah Marshall, because if she does...
These comments are going to age like so many avocados on so many breakfast bars. Yet another boxer who disagrees with Eddie Hearn's assertion that Wilder wouldn't win a round against Alexander Usyk is veteran fighter, two-division champion Andre Ward, who said, yeah, right, that right hand is going to land at some point. Rounds will be won by Wilder.
No, the fuck they won't!
Why is it that both Andre Ward and Clarissa Shields two fighters who are not known as punchers. They're not big on power themselves. They don't fight that way. These are two very cerebral, technical fighters. Why are they all of a sudden so partial to power when they themselves don't even fight that way?
Ain't Deontay Wilder the guy that said he doesn't need skills because he had power?
Well, I'll tell you something. Perhaps if he had more skills and focused on that a little more throughout his career, he wouldn't have been a deer in the headlights with Tyson Fury the last two times. And why are two skillful, technical, cerebral boxers going up to bat for Deontay Wilder's minimalist approach to boxing when they themselves don't approach the sport that way?
Tribalism.
Nationalism? That's what's at work here. The only reason Andre Ward and Clarissa Shields and Lou Dibella are going up to bat for Deontay Wilder in this hypothetical matchup is due to tribalism and nationalism, which has fuck all to do with the nuts and bolts of boxing. It goes back to what I said about Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. There are a lot of people, they're making their predictions based on who they have more in common with as opposed to the actual nuts and bolts of boxing, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It is the year mark of a big fight, a good fight.
The year mark of a good fight are emotionally invested fight fans.
In this instance, what we're talking about are emotionally invested fighters. Fighters themselves whose objectivity is so hindered by their emotional attachment to a particular horse in the race, when in reality, nothing about Deontay Wilder's career, nothing about the way he fights, nothing about the way he performs.
Usyk beats this guy easy.
Lou Dibella, Clarissa Shields, and Andre Ward, did they expect us all to play along with this fantasy that Deontay Wilder is this mythical, legendary puncher who once he touches you with that right hand, you're going to turn into sand? Is that what we're all expected to do?
We're all expected to believe that as soon as Deontay Wilder lays a glove on you, you're going to collapse?
I don't think of Deontay Wilder and his power as being on the scale of a George Foreman. George Foreman, who became a champion by beating the then unbeaten Joe Frazier in 2 rounds. Just 2 rounds. Joe Frazier was known for having a granite chin. This was a guy who could take a punch.
This was a guy who didn't make it to the 3rd round with George Foreman, because that's how big a puncher George was.
And that was a legendary puncher. I think of Ernie Shavers, who was thought of as the hardest puncher of his era amongst his contemporaries. It was his contemporaries.
He got that reputation because of them and what they were saying and how they described being hit by him.
Deontay Wilder doesn't have that reputation amongst his peers. He doesn't. Jason Gavern, who fought both Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, said Anthony Joshua hits harder than Deontay Wilder does.
Does that mean Deontay don't hit hard?
No, it doesn't mean he's pillow-fisted. He hits hard. He hits plenty hard. But the notion that as soon as he lays a glove on somebody...
Listen, according to Jason Gavern, Anthony Joshua hits harder than Deontay Wilder. You got an issue with that?
You got a problem with that. You take it up with him, all right? Because he fought them both.
You know what they want to do? They want to mythify Deontay Wilder. Mythify his power like we haven't seen him in action before.
As if this ain't the same Deontay Wilder that I saw go 12 rounds with Bermain Stavern. For 12 rounds, Bermain Stavern was able to take what Deontay Wilder had for 12 rounds. It wasn't until their second fight, some years later, after Stavern was inactive for 2 years, that Deontay Wilder scored a knockout. But in their first fight, Bermain Stavern went 12 with that guy. So if Bermain Stavern...
You're telling me that Bermain Stavern can go the distance with Deontay, but Alexander Usyk can't.
Against an older, more war-torn Deontay Wilder than the Wilder that Bermain Stavern fought 6 or 7 years ago. That's what you're telling me? That's what you're trying to convince me of? A Wilder who's had approximately 8 to 9 surgeries to the same arm.
Suffered 2 systematic beatings at the hands of the same guy, Tyson Fury. Guy who's what, 36? Going on 37 years old.
Usyk can't go the distance with that guy. No.
Why not? Bermain Stavern did.
Let me tell you something. I don't expect this fight to happen. I don't. What I'm expecting is that Deontay may end up knocking out Robert Helenius, and when he does, he'll likely go straight into an Andy Ruiz showdown of former champions. I don't expect that the people at the PBC will make Usyk an offer to bring him over in order to get Wilder that opportunity to fight for all 3 of those alphabet titles. I don't expect to see that happen.
But if it did, Usyk beats Wilder easy.
And he beats him easier than he beat Anthony Joshua, because Anthony is actually a more prolific puncher than Deontay Wilder. He does throw more punches than Wilder in a round, whereas Wilder spends the entirety of a round pawing with the lead hand in order to set up.
In order to set up the straight right. And in order to set up the straight right, he's got to set his feet.
Usyk's not going to let him do that. You guys are fooled by what Deontay Wilder does to fat club fighters and cruiserweights and stationary targets and guys who, if we're being honest, they just aren't very good.
Oh, but he knocked out Tyson Fury. He knocked out Tyson Fury.
Big fucking deal he knocked down Tyson Fury. Nevin Pajcik knocked down Tyson Fury. Steve Cunningham, a cruiserweight, knocked down Tyson Fury.
Is this the monumental feat that Deontay Wilder performed that's the biggest testament to his power? Knocking down Tyson Fury?
Did he keep him down?
You know the answer.
There would be several things working against Deontay Wilder in a fight with Alexander Usyk, and poor balance and coordination is one of them.
He's got poor footwork, and he can't let go of that right hand unless he sets his feet.
And against mobile southpaw, who's going to stay just on the outside of Deontay Wilder's jab, his lead hand, his jab hand.
Because Deontay Wilder's flat-footed, Usyk isn't. Wilder don't fight on the balls of his feet.
Usyk does, and he'd likely have lead foot advantage over Deontay Wilder as he sails past the straight jab,
Pops him with his backhand, the straight left hand, out of the southpaw stance.
Deontay's not going to see those punches coming, not from a moving target who bends at the knees, bends at the waist, fights out of the southpaw stance, and overall is a much smaller target than many of the fighters that he's fought before. Smaller target than Tyson Fury, certainly.
This is a guy who'd likely have lead foot advantage, and he'd use that advantage to cut angles, hit Wilder with punches he doesn't see.
This is a guy with more of a work rate than Deontay Wilder, who's better on the inside than Deontay Wilder. I don't think Deontay could keep him out. I don't think he could keep Usyk at arm's length.
Where he would need him to be to get off that right hand and land it.
No, I don't think he'd be able to keep Usyk out of the pocket. I think Usyk would invade the pocket, land short punches and short combinations.
And never mind that Deontay Wilder has a piss-poor gas tank.
The guy's got a piss-poor engine. He was breathing with his mouth open after just one round in the last Tyson Fury fight, whereas Alexander Usyk, he ain't got a piss-poor engine. He's got a great engine.
Deontay Wilder would tire long before Alexander Usyk.
I mean, the way I see it, the most conservative prediction would have to be Alexander Usyk on points, going the distance. But you could go a step further and say that because of Deontay Wilder's piss-poor gas tank and the wear and tear he might have suffered in the two Tyson Fury fights that he lost,
you could go a step further and say that he might stop Deontay not due to concussive power, but due to exhaustion.
his work rate, his pace, his pressure, he would exhaust Deontay Wilder. Due to the height differential, Deontay Wilder would have to try to punch down to hit him. And
Punching down to try to hit this guy, this small target, that's going to leave you in line for his straight left hand, his backhand.
Wilder don't win this fight. He don't win this fight. And while I don't expect this fight to ever get made, if it does, I've got Usyk.
Especially against the Deontay Wilder that might be shot to bits.
Two beatings like the two beatings that Wilder suffered at the hands of Tyson Fury can leave a fighter changed.
Really can. And the only chance he has in a fight like this would have to be a puncher's chance, which really...
Not much chance at all.